Hey y'all, it's Kate from the Literary Apothecary, and welcome back to another episode of Bibliotherapy Sunday. So today, on Sunday, February 7th, we're going to be talking about death of a loved one and grief. Now, I know in the past year or so, a lot of people have been dealing with this because of COVID and everything going on in the US right now. And really, death and grief is sadly a part of life. You have to deal with people that you love dying in life. It's a part of life. So today I'm going to talk about the 5 stages of grief, which Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talks about. And some people go through all 5 stages, some people go through only some of them. And the most important thing to remember in watching this video is that the process of grief is different for every person. So what I recommend and what the authors of the novel Cure recommend, who are bibliotherapists in themselves and have studied both literature and psychology and grieving on their own, recommend is embrace the stages that you go through. Let them happen, and your body and your soul will tell you when it's time to move on to the next stage. So the first stage that you often go through in grief is denial. And the novel Cure recommends for denial is After You'd Gone by Maggie O'Farrell. And the authors of the novel Cure say, let this novel give you permission to exist for a while in your own cocoon of shock. Then in time, your body will shed the cocoon when it's ready. A lot of times when we first lose someone that we love, we're in denial, we're in shock. We can't believe it's happened. It can't be. This person that I love more than anyone in the world cannot be dead yet, we say. And so Ella Berthoud and Susan Elderkin from the novel Cure recommend just embrace this. Let your body go through this denial phase. And eventually, when it's ready to move on, it'll shed the cocoon of shock and it will move on to the next stage, which is often anger. So the book that's recommended for anger is Incendiary by Chris Cleavey. And this book sounds really remarkable. I really want to read this book. It's about a mother and a woman who is grieving because she has lost her husband and her son in a attack on Wimbledon Stadium in England, and it's believed that Osama bin Laden is behind this attack, just like the attack on 9/11. And she writes this letter to Osama bin Laden, trying to convey her grief and her anger and what she's going through, and to make Osama bin Laden realize that he just killed an innocent boy in this attack. And the way that they describe this book in the novel Cure just makes me feel all ready for this protagonist, and it makes me want to pick that book up. They write, your anger may feel endless, and it should, for it's the transmutation of your love, but it can dissipate only if you let it out. And then once you let it out, then you'll move on to the next stage, which is negotiation. Now, some people don't go through negotiation phase. It's most common in kids, but this is where you feel like you can bargain for your loved one's life. I'll give you this if you give me my loved one back. And the book that's recommended for this, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. And in this book, we have our main protagonist who's a child, and his father was killed during 9/11, and he's on this hunt to find something his father has left to find out. And he goes through this whole journey and this awareness, and he learns this whole story about his grandparents, and he learns to embrace the love of his mom who's still alive. So then the next stage in grieving is depression, and this is the hardest stage that anyone goes through and the most common stage of grief. The book that is recommended by the novel Cure is What I Loved by Siri Hudsvit, and the authors of the novel Cure write that pain is an unavoidable part of life, and experiencing yours in the company of these characters that were created by Hudsvit will help you inhabit its darkest corners, perhaps the most vital part of the process of grieving, if you have had any hope in moving on. And in order to get through all the stages of grief, you have to move on from depression. It hurts. This is the most painful part of grief, but you have to move on from it. But first, embrace it. Let it happen, and then your body, like we've said, will tell you when it's time to move on. And then the last stage of grief is acceptance, when you've finally been able to say, okay, I don't like that this has happened. I still miss this person dearly, but it's happened. There's nothing I can do about it. And so you've accepted that death. And the book that the novel Cure recommends for acceptance stage is Here Is Where We Meet by John Berger. And in this book, John Berger allows his dead characters to grow alongside of the characters that are still alive. And so they say, the novel Cure authors say, don't close them off. Learn from the people that have been in your life, whether they're alive or dead, and take bits of those that you loved and include it in your daily life so you can remember those people and don't just forget about them because it's too hard. So those are the 5 stages of grief and 5 books that are recommended, again, by the novel Cure, by Ella Berthod and Susan Elderkin. You know I love this book. I talk about it every week. I suggest everyone pick this book up because it has hundreds of ailments and cures for those ailments. But again, like I said at the start of this video, the most important thing to remember is the process of grief is different for every person. So embrace whatever stages you're going through, let them happen, and your body and your soul will tell you when it's time to move on to the next. So that's our episode for today of Bibliotherapy Sunday. Tune in next week for a new episode. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notifications when we put new videos out. Keep reading, and I love you all to the moon and back.